All right, everyone. So Saturday night main event is over, and I have to say I am loving these Saturday night main events. The overall theme of them, just kind of showing the past, having the present, having all of these, legends in attendance, I think is phenomenal. So we're just going to give our thoughts. This is not going to necessarily be too organized of a thing. We're literally going to go down our Twitter feed of retweets and give our thoughts on big moments for Saturday night main event. So let's get right into it. So for starters, we got the return of Ted DiBiase. This is pretty cool. You see the $1 Million Man. He does his iconic laugh. That was a pretty cool start to the show. Then, of course, we got into a special match between Rhea Ripley and Nia Jax for the championship. I thought the fans were loving this. I thought Nia Jax and Rhea Ripley had moves that they just felt powerful. You felt like this was a big match. Rhea Ripley ended up retaining her championship, but overall, a fantastic match to start. And before that match, you had the vintage mics come down for Lillian Garcia. I thought that was super cool. Once again, just a nice little touch, right? This is what we're talking about. Are these little changes they make for Saturday night main event really make it feel like a special event, and it feels like a gateway to the past. You then had Braun Breaker and you had Sheamus. And I thought this match was also really cool. There was a lot of big moves. I thought this is where Jesse the Body Ventura, I'm happy they had him doing this match because he was phenomenal on the mic during this. Now, obviously, Braun Breaker ended up winning it, but I thought Sheamus put up a very good performance, and I think this was perfect for Sheamus. Didn't lose any, he didn't lose anything by losing this match. Braun Breaker continues his rise in the company, but Russell Alma tweeted out this. He said, Jesse, the star of the show, about giving out about the 3 count, dropping the F-bomb, he said WWF, and dropping some Steiner math. So these were important moments, I think. And Jesse was hilarious during this match. It reminded you of the old style of announcing. And it's not that it doesn't even happen, because it still happens to this day. But, where you just had one announcer who was just going so hard for one of the superstars in the ring, it just felt awesome, and his comment about the Steiner math I thought was pretty funny too, and a great moment. So as we move through the show, we then get to Braun Strowman versus Jacob Fatu, and I have to say this might have been the highlight of the night. What they are doing with Jacob Fatu is phenomenal. I've been very worried about where they're heading with the Bloodline storyline, but it looks like there may be a star that is being born out of that new bloodline, and I think it's going to be Jacob Fatu. The fans were going crazy. This reminded me so much of what they did with Bronson Reed. They basically just said, we're going to use the same playbook and get him over, and that's exactly what they did. Jacob Fatu destroyed Braun Strowman after a pretty decent match, but the after the match stuff is where it counted. He continued to attack Braun Strowman. Strowman was bleeding from the mouth. This is something we're going to see more of going forward, and I just think that they're doing a great job with Jacob Fatu of making him, really feel like a badass. And the fans were on his side at the end of this thing. They were chanting for him. They loved every second of this segment, and I think moving forward, this is going to be key. Because if they can get a main eventer now, right? So let's say this new bloodline is broken up. Let's say they're done with it. If they can get a main eventer in Jacob Fatu, I think that's going to be phenomenal. I do feel bad for Braun Strowman. I thought they were doing a lot of really good stuff with Braun Strowman over the past, months. I thought they were doing pretty good with him. This match, I gotta say, it probably, he took a hit with this. I think, just being demolished in this way. Maybe this sparks a longer feud or something like that. I don't know, but I didn't think this was a very good night for Braun Strowman. I thought the match was good. I thought he did what he needed to do really well. But the way this was booked by WWE was basically just Jacob Fatu is going to destroy you. It would have been one thing had they had somebody else come out and attack Braun Strowman, but the fact that he just got his butt kicked like in this way, because Braun Strowman was dominating for parts. He really was, and even the moment where things changed, he was really dominating. But then Jacob Fatu just kind of went crazy, and so I thought this was a great moment for everybody involved. Okay, so then obviously you have Jey Uso versus Gunther. This match was pretty good. Once again, I just think part of the problem with these pay-per-views is that there are so many good matches on this card that the main event doesn't even always feel like necessarily the main event. Now, obviously, the fans were loving this. Jey Uso was pretty close to winning. You saw it in Gunther's face at the end of the match, and Michael Cole went out of his way to point that out. So keep that in mind, right? Michael Cole went out of his way to point that out, that Gunther realized, wow, Jey Uso is a lot better than that he had thought. So it was a good match. The fans were involved. There's nothing, too shocking about it, but it was Gunther retained. It wasn't like we got a surprise. Jey Uso ends up winning the championship, but it was certainly the two biggest names on the card. So you figure it was worth the main event status. So overall, I think this is simply a fantastic show by WWE. I hope they continue to do this. I would much rather see a bunch of Saturday night main events than pay-per-views that I don't care about. Meaning I care about the Royal Rumble, I care about Survivor Series, I care about WrestleMania, Money in the Bank, Hell in the Cell, stuff like that. But then they have some pay-per-views that they basically add on every year that are just, they're constantly changing and they just don't really matter. We don't really care about them. Put Saturday night main events in there. Doesn't mean you have to do them in every position, but get a few of them. And even if it's only two a year, right? Now we've seen two already. Well, one in 2024, one in 2025. But even if it's only two in a year, I think that is fine. But I could go for three. I know, maybe people will say no, two's good, or maybe only one's good. But I think two certainly would be good because it's just there's something about them. It's a perfect theme for you to watch, and the beauty of it is that you don't even need anything crazy to go on for people to really be invested. Like there was nothing in this Saturday night main event that you would call crazy. There was not a big twist. There wasn't some crazy TLC match. There wasn't some crazy hardcore backstage brawl or anything like that. It was a pretty typical, like almost an old fashioned style pay per view, minus the Jacob Fatu Braun Strowman, right? Everything else was pretty typical wrestling. And yet it still felt awesome. And I think part of the reason for that is the entire vibe of the event. I think the fact that they produce an event that is, like I said, has new wrestlers in it, but it's kind of talking about the past, right? It's viewing the past, and you have these legends coming out, and you're seeing old clips from the old Saturday night main events. All of those things combined, I think, make you enjoy the show more than you would have if this was just your typical Raw. It doesn't feel like a pay per view, but it also doesn't feel like Monday Night Raw. And I think if you put these in smart areas and you remove some of the pay per views that nobody cares about, I think this will be an awesome idea. And I don't know if it will get tiring. That could be the case. But I think if you keep it creative and you keep doing things like this, or even if you find other things you can kind of look back on and, use that as kind of the blueprint for doing other things that you can kind of connect to the old wrestling. I just think it's awesome. But put in the comment section below what you think. I loved this Saturday night main event. I thought it was pretty good. And we'll see now. Royal Rumble is just next week.